Mr. President.
Senator from Washington.
Mr. President, I am here this evening to stand with patients and families and communities nationwide to make sure they have a voice to continue speaking out against Trumpcare and to urge our Republican colleagues to stand with their constituents and join Democrats in rejecting this mean bill. Mr. President, before I go any further, I want to talk about an incredible group of families I met with recently who are making their voices heard against Trumpcare. These were parents with kids who are battling serious and complex medical conditions. And these families have spent the majority of their summer here in Washington, D.C., sharing their stories about what having health care means to them. The little lobbyists, young kids, 3 years old, 5 years old, 8 years old, who should be at home in their neighborhoods like other kids, but instead they are here fighting for their own health care and their lives. So I held a press conference with these families here in the Capitol where their parents shared their stories about what Trumpcare would mean for them and their families. They spoke about their worries and their fears for the future. One story was that of Elena Hung and her daughter Ziamora. Ziamora is 3 years old. She'll be starting school this fall, and you can just tell she's one of those kids with incredible energy and lights up the room. But Ziamora was born with complications in her lungs, in her heart, and in her kidneys. She needs a tracheotomy, a feeding tube, and a ventilator just to stay alive. And so Elena told me about what this has meant for her and her family to have health care these last couple of years. You see, Elena and her husband both have professional degrees, good-paying jobs, and savings in the bank. They've done everything right, as Elena put it, and played by the rules. But nothing prepared them for dealing with the expensive care Ziamora would need. Hospitalizations, multiple surgeries, medical equipment, all have added up to cost more than $3 million. And Elena talked about the uncertainty that Trumpcare has caused her family. Because of Trumpcare, she said they are terrified about lifetime caps coming back, that if they lose their health care, Ziamora's 10 pre-existing conditions will make her uninsurable, and about losing their home or going bankrupt. Mr. President, this is so wrong. The Hung family should be able to focus on Ziamora, the care that she needs, getting the right specialists, and therapies to advance her treatment. The Morrison family, who I also met with, shouldn't have to worry about their son, Timmy, getting the care he needs. Ziamora and Timmy and all the other little lobbyists deserve to be kids, to live at home, to go to school, to grow up and to just live. That was Elena's message to our Republican colleagues, and I couldn't agree with her more. Mr. President, I've seen my share of contentious legislation during my time in the Senate. I've seen quite a few Democratic bills that Republicans couldn't stand. I've seen Republican bills that Democrats would never vote for. So I understand that some of my colleagues may disagree with certain parts of the Affordable Care Act. But what I can't understand is why anyone would ignore real-life stories of their own constituents whose lives have changed and even been saved by this law. For one, that's not how you have a serious policy debate, ignoring your constituents and facts and fudging the numbers. But more importantly, that's not what we were sent here to do by the people we represent. They rightly expect and deserve better. And Mr. President, what we have seen for the last 7 years and since Republican leadership began their efforts to repeal the ACA has been truly unprecedented. In January of this year, Republican leadership kicked Democrats out of the process entirely under reconciliation. And since then, they've done just about everything possible to prevent not just Democrats, but anyone, including some in their own party, from being involved in that process. No hearings, no scrutiny, no public input, no expert testimony. And when they finally released the Trumpcare bill after months of negotiating in secret, in a room of 13 men, it is no surprise that it was immediately rejected by people across the country because it was clear their bill isn't actually about health care. Far from it. Their bill is about giving a massive gift to the wealthy and already well-connected on the backs of children and working families and people with disabilities and the sick and the elderly. And so Democrats and Republicans and independents, millions of people, have stood up and said no to this awful bill. No to increasing costs for families and seniors. no to putting insurance companies back in charge, no to kicking tens of millions of people off their health insurance, no to attacking women's health and rights. In fact, one study came out showing it was the least popular bill in 3 decades. I guess it's no surprise my Republican colleagues didn't want to defend this bill, but here's what's frankly appalling. What did Republican leaders do in the face of large-scale popular rejection of that bill? What did Republican leaders do after members of their own party said they couldn't vote for it without massive changes to help more people? They made the bill worse. They did nothing to address the concerns that even many Republicans, governors, senators, and so many others had about the massive cuts to Medicaid that would be devastating to patients and to our states. They did nothing to truly address the defunding of Planned Parenthood and cutting off access to care for millions of women. They included an opioid fund so insignificant, a Republican governor said it would be like, quote, spitting in the ocean. And when it comes to affordability and putting insurance companies back in charge, Republican leaders not only didn't fix that problem, it made it a whole lot worse. And they caved to the most extreme members of their caucus by including the Cruz-Lee provision. And now with every sweetener, every tweak, they've not only made the bill worse, they have made it unworkable, and even in violation of the Senate reconciliation process. Now, as soon as tomorrow, Republican leadership is saying we are going to move forward with either a vote on their failed Trumpcare bill, a vote to repeal the ACA entirely with no plan to help families who would be devastated, or maybe a vote on the disastrous House version of the Trumpcare bill. Nobody knows, especially our Republican colleagues. Mr. President, it's like Leader McConnell is setting Senate Republicans up to play choose your own adventure with our families' health care. Even if he doesn't know for sure where this will end, but he is clearly willing to do whatever it takes to get to yes. And so is President Trump. He's doing what he does. He's tweeting tweets, threatening, stirring up his extreme base, sending Vice President Pence to twist arms to try and convince a few more Republicans to stay quiet about their very legitimate concerns. But as we head towards a possible vote tomorrow, I hope that my Republican colleagues, especially those who've already indicated they oppose this bill in process, will demand better for their own constituents. And I'm going to keep saying this until it sinks in. Democrats are ready, as we always have been, to work with Republicans to improve our healthcare system and make healthcare more affordable, more accessible, and higher quality, and to clean up the mess that has now been made with their efforts to sabotage the ACA in order to jam this Trumpcare bill through. Because let's be clear, as President Trump and Republicans have tried to pass Trumpcare legislatively, they've also implemented it by undermining our current healthcare system. And now, unless they get serious and get to work with Democrats, families are going to face higher premiums in 2018, have fewer choices, all because of partisan political tactics. Mr. President, this fight is on a razor's edge, and Democrats are going to be doing everything we can to stop it. We just need a few Republicans to join us, to stand on the side of patients and families and say no to Trumpcare. Democrats will do everything we can to persuade more Republicans to join us, but what's always made the difference thus far, what truly matters, is if Republicans hear from their own constituents. So I'm here tonight to strongly urge people across the country, ramp up the pressure in these last few hours, keep calling and tweeting and double down on your advocacy, and make your voice heard. Again, we have less than 24 hours until Republican leadership plan to hold a vote. Republican senators, all senators, need to hear from you that now is the time to stand up, do the right thing, oppose Trumpcare for once and for all. Mr. President, I know a number of our colleagues are going to be coming out here on the floor tonight to talk about this, who will be raising their voices and their concerns, and I urge all senators to stand with us tomorrow and vote no. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the floor.